This is Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur with your host, Lynn Freest. Lynn will share ideas and expert advice from people that are walking in your shoes and living their encore careers, where they want and at the pace they want. You'll start a company of one with confidence and knowledge to live a fulfilled life of freedom and ease. Lynn is a coach and leadership consultant whose mission is to show senior leaders and experts how to start something refreshing and new after a full career in the corporate environment.
Welcome to this episode of Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur. Thanks for listening. With an Encore Career, the rewards are better than a cold beer on a hot day. And you can be creating value in the world beyond just winning the next pickleball game. You can work when you want, where you want, and do the work you love. You can live the dream. If you're ready to get started, please contact me at lynn@lynnfreest.com. This is episode 173, and it's Creating a Distinctive Personal Brand with Nikki Takahashi. I've had the great pleasure to work with Nikki in some training and to get to know her and really be impressed by her talent. Nikki's a digital media designer and brand strategist. She's helped over 300 entrepreneurs embrace and amplify what makes them unique. Nikki's the founder and CEO of Fetching Fin, an agency that gets clients noticed both in person, online, and in print. And she also hosts the Square Peg Entrepreneur podcast, featuring disruptors and mavericks in the business and in the industry. Some of Nikki's most recent adventures include skydiving over the Canadian Rockies and flying to Berlin for a tattoo. Today, it's going to be a fun episode. Nikki's, again, just a great person, very talented. And so I'm going to be asking her a few questions. And we'll start off with, what breaks her heart when a person brings her some weak branding or a website that it just isn't working? Then we'll go on and we'll ask her about her personal journey as an entrepreneur. And then she has worked with this idea of story brand that's done by Donald Miller. And I think that's an important concept too for us as Encore Career people to think about, this whole idea of how do we tell our story. And then we're going to ask her a little bit about what does she see when she sees a client that is her perfect person to work with. And finally, I'm going to ask her a little bit about what are the trends she sees around personal branding. So with that, on to the episode. Well, hi, Nikki, and welcome to the show. And let's get started right away. I'd like you to tell me about what really breaks your heart with some of the people that come in with a personal website and they say, Nikki, help me fix this.
Oh, Lynn, this is just such a juicy question. And it just tugs at my heartstrings because it's so true. When it comes to personal branding, people are often, especially in the early stages of going out on their own and starting their business, they're so concerned about being accepted and fitting into their industry, conforming, that their branding and their website and their messaging comes out looking, I like to say it looks beige, like it's blah. It's industry polite. However, it certainly doesn't showcase them in a light that makes them stand out as unique and individually magnetic. And I know that many of the clients that I work with have an edge to them and a side that is just so cool and will be fascinating to focus on and feature, but they're a little bit hesitant to. And it can be time. People need some time to warm up and get into the groove and feel comfortable promoting themselves in that way. Or it could be that their mindset, especially coming from a corporate world, like many of your clients and your audiences do, that being industry polite and fitting in may be more acceptable. What have you found in that area?
Oh, that's true. And it's one of those things where not only do we want to sound like the others that was accepted in the corporate world, but then we don't want to make mistakes. Again, in the corporate world, whatever you say, you want to be very cautious and not make a mistake, which is okay, but then you don't sound unique either.
That's right. It's expected in the corporate world. And you don't want to stand out and you don't want to draw attention to yourself necessarily as an individual, going all rogue and maverick. But in business as an entrepreneur, that's certainly what you need to do as a personal brand.
Well, and I think too, I think having come from the corporate world, sometimes we're trying to appeal to a wide range of people. Whereas as I think of as being in personal branding as a solopreneur, you really got to narrow your focus, which means you won't attract everybody, but you'll attract a particular group of people.
It's a common mistake that people in marketing, the idea is that they want to appeal to everyone. Who's your target audience? Everyone is my audience, which, as we know, is so untrue. If you can niche, I don't know how you say the word. Is it niche in the States? Maybe.
Probably.
Don't know. Okay. The finer you can hone in on your ideal client and get very focused, it's so much easier to speak to them in an authentic way that resonates with them. You can really nail those pain points and they'll feel it in their gut when you say it. When you say, this is the issue that you're having right now. Oh, yeah, they get me so well. Whereas if your audience is broad, it's so difficult to appeal to all of them and really get emotional and make those connections and resonate.
Yeah, and I think of these things where I'm hesitant to really show myself. And yet I've been encouraged by you and others, hey, just talk. And I've found that in my podcast. Occasionally I've done a relatively unscripted podcast, and people actually resonated better with that than my more formal ones, I guess I'll say.
It's like sitting down and having a coffee, isn't it? When you frame it that way. And for some of your listeners who may be considering a podcast, I know that was one of my fears. I was concerned about the ums and the ahs and maybe going off script or not having it so perfect that I paused way too long. Just diving in and being natural, as if you're having a cup of coffee with somebody, having that chat can be much more engaging and much more true. I chuckle when I think about, there was a client that I met in person once, and we had been doing business online, and she had been checking me out on social media and online. And once we met in person, she said, Nikki, you're so much cooler online than you are in person, which was a horrible thing for her to say, first of all. But boy, did that ever hit home, because I thought, wow, like there's just a disconnect there. I'm trying to be perfect, extra engaging, extra magnetic on social media, when in person, maybe I'm not always that way. So trying to find that balance and just be yourself in the quirkiest, truest way that you can consistently is so much better. That's going to stop those question marks from popping up in somebody's head when they pick up the phone and you're chatting. Like, is this the same person that I saw on the website or on Instagram? That subconsciously, I believe, just creates just some maybe mistrust, right? So there's just something there that like, oh, is this person really authentic and honest and true? Because I'm getting these different vibes.
Okay. Yeah. I'd like to also hear about your story. What's your journey been as an entrepreneur? It's always fun for other people to see what's the path you took to get to where you are today.
Oh, yeah. My journey was actually inspired by my grandmother's Encore Career. So this is a fun thing to talk about. I remember being very young, and she was a farm wife out in the middle of the prairie in Alberta, Canada, doing the housework, feeding the cows and the chores and all these things. And there came a time a number of years later where she and my grandfather moved into the bigger city. And she just blossomed into this encore career of hers, where she was just much more of her own authentic personal brand. So although she had done so many years as that farm wife, the colors and the vibrancy and the personality that came out when she was able to communicate and engage the way that she really truly was in her soul was just fascinating to watch as a grandchild, and such a great example of just fearlessness, just stepping out and taking a chance. So she went from, like I said, feeding the cattle to she was a karaoke queen. She traveled the world doing these singing contests and winning awards. She put telethons on in the city and raised money. She had singing groups. She was going to the hospitals to do performances. She had an image consulting business. It was always vibrant and lively and so true to her. And that was the first time that I realized anybody can have a business. Isn't that funny? I didn't understand that concept, but she was really that first example of being an entrepreneur and doing what you love in a way that is true to you. So her Encore Career was the inspiration for me. And back when I first came out of high school, I would say branding wasn't really a word that was commonly used. So although I knew all these things that my grandmother had demonstrated, created a brand, I didn't have a word for it. And I didn't know what schooling I should take to evolve that career. So I went the route of I dabbled in some correspondence classes on interior decorating because environment plays a part in personal branding and how you feel about yourself and how you express yourself. I took a page from her book and I did some image consulting. So makeup and color coding, the Color Me a Season thing from way back in the 80s. I did a little bit of that too. And then eventually meandered my way into multimedia school where I learned more about graphic design and website design and video. And today we know all of those things culminate to be branding or a personal brand. But back then it was just so pieced out that I made it work, but I didn't have a word for it.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I suppose the first time I heard that was, well, I'm guessing it's 30, 40 years ago now, but Tom Peters came out in a Fast Company magazine and the cover was a brand called You. And he had the Tide logo on it. And that's the first time I'd ever heard of it, but that's a long time ago now.
Right. Yeah. And personal branding, even less so, although we see it all the time now with influencers and things on social media. Everybody is a personal brand.
So is that kind of the work you're doing now, or is it, who are you serving now?
I do serve businesses, but I love serving personal brands. The solo entrepreneurs, the coaches, consultants, speakers, authors, all of these people that need to show up authentically as themselves and just get the word out about their business and engage with their clients in a very true way to their style and their personality. So I'd help them to put the messaging together that supports the business that they're doing and to get the clients that they want to connect with. We create what is more commonly known as a brand, the logo design and the color palettes, website design, and then some video as well. And then support them long-term, creating things like their social media posts, for example. So that brand style and message is really consistent through all of their channels, creating that trust and authenticity.
Now, one of the things I know you also have worked on was this idea from Donald Miller called Story Brand. And again, as I think of myself trying to say, okay, what am I going to talk to people about? This whole idea of the story brand, I know you've worked with that a lot, but that's an intriguing thing too for people just starting.
It's true. Years ago, I did only do the logo design and the website design for clients. And I really felt like there was something missing, but I didn't understand marketing. It felt like just some woo-woo concept, spaghetti hitting a wall. I didn't get it. I would outsource that. I would refer clients to other marketers and content creators and just sit back and watch, but I didn't get it. I thought that's way above my education level and understanding. And then I saw Donald Miller's book come out, Building a Story Brand, in which he promised marketing and messaging that's really easy. And I thought, all right, let's see, Donald Miller. So I read that book and I thought, hot damn, that is pretty easy, actually. So I read it 3, 4, 5. I think I did it about 6 times before I was convinced, okay, there might be something to this and it might not be as difficult as I think. So I took those concepts in Donald's book and applied it to just the homepage of my website. So he has a 7-part framework that is truly taking the hero's journey, really taking your client through a pathway similar to when you're writing a story. But you use those components to craft and create things like the homepage of your website or a landing page. And so I did that on my homepage. And within the first month, my revenue tripled like magic. And I thought, wow, there is something to this. I'm truly speaking to my ideal client and I'm getting returns for it immediately. So simple, but so effective. Mm-hmm. And so I did take the training from Donald Miller. I went down to Nashville and became one of his certified story brand guides and did that for a number of years and was finally able to serve my clients in a way that felt really good. It felt like I wasn't just jumping in with just a pretty up piece for their branding, but something that really supported their message and their personal style using the framework as a first step. So for any of your listeners who don't know where to start, I would certainly recommend that book, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. It is easy and it works if you do those steps, and that's a great place to begin.
Okay, great. Thinking again for people that may be starting their Encore career, when you've had great clients or people that you really enjoyed working with, could really help move, What are some of the things they brought to you as opposed to hoping you do it all for them? But what are some of the elements that they bring that give you something to build on?
When I'm specifically thinking about clients who are building an Encore career, people who have come from the corporate world, there are a few things that they do already really well. And I don't know if it's often recognized, but it certainly does contribute to the success of their business and the way that we flesh out their brand. So the first thing that I notice about these clients is they're already accustomed to having a number of different departments in their business, right? As opposed to the entrepreneur who jumps in and believes from the beginning that they can do it all. That delegation piece it's a mind bender. I still deal with it day after day because I can't let go. Whereas Encore Career clients already have that mindset. And so they can be so focused on their craft and on what they do best and delegate all the rest of the stuff, including branding and marketing and design. It just makes things so much cleaner and easier, and I think less stressful. Do you find that in the clients that you're working with or in your own experience?
Yeah, it has been. And it took a while, but at first I said, I'll learn how to do this and that. And a few of those things I did, but I quickly found that I was burning up all my time. And then it got to be like podcasting. Mm-hmm. I found out right away that I could never be more than a mediocre podcast producer. I didn't have the time or the interest to even, so it was better to have an expert do that and free up my time. And it worked well along with some other people like yourself or other people that knew how these specialty things worked. Hey, it's much easier for you to do that because I'm going to waste time and I won't be making any money if I'm trying to do graphic design. Plus it'll look crappy too, but
it's a huge learning curve. And there are some people that have a true interest in it. And then I say, hey, yeah, go for it. Learn Canva or dabble in it and try your hand at it if you've got a true interest in it. But if it's just a tactic for saving a buck at the end of the day, you're probably going to waste so many hours just getting to that very first step that it's not even worth trying to save that buck. Just go ahead and invest in the people that know how to do it. And you bring up another point when it comes to technology. I think that's another thing that I see with clients coming in and looking for an Encore career is that technology overwhelm is something, it's not unique to them, but certainly trying to get the right software and pieces to integrate is a challenge for anyone. Mm-hmm. And so I know that just happens to be one of my skill sets and it's not at all related to design, but I find that when I'm working with a client, if I know, and this is advice for your listeners, if you can communicate what you want the outcome to be with that software versus trying to tell me what software you want to use, it's much easier for me to prescribe a whole integrated solution. Chances are I've dealt with 10 different email marketing systems or 5 different this or that or the other. They all integrate differently. They all spit out different amounts, different types and amounts of information. And so you may be, selling yourself short if you take this solution, and you may be overpaying if you take that solution. But if I understand what the outcome is and what you need at the end of the day, I can help integrate that technology. So find somebody to do that too. Don't get bogged down in that mountain. That's a tough one.
Yeah. And I recommend people that you probably, rather than know how, you have to know who. But the thing is, you can probably gain an awareness. So if you have an awareness of what's the purpose of email marketing systems, you may have some general ideas about it. But like you say, describe what you're trying to do, and then let a person like yourself say, oh, for what you want, this is a system that'll work. So
that's right. And a little bit of research so that you know what's possible is also good. But I find it's the most challenging when somebody comes to me and says, this is specifically the software that I want to use. And sometimes it's so obscure that it doesn't connect at all with any of the other things that we're putting together. And there again, you're spending more time and money trying to MacGyver something together that's going to work when perhaps there was another solution that would have just been much more seamless.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, I'm guessing one of my personal things that I've been somewhat scattergunned. I'll try to do everything on social media or whatever it may be. And then I've gotten more focused and I've gotten more progress doing that. But I'm guessing you do the same thing. And hey, we won't try to do everything everywhere for your branding project.
That's right. And we do when it comes to social media, that can be a team's full-time job, social media. But what we can do on a smaller scale to help our clients is just very simply, there are some clients that just give us a Word document a month before, and they've just collected a random selection of thoughts or quotes or some links to articles that they thought were interesting. And all they need is for us to create a graphic to go with that is aligned with their branding in there, and then schedule it, right? That's really all that they need. So it doesn't need to be too overthought. It doesn't need to be this big prescribed one post a day type of a thing. A little bit is better than nothing. And we can do that small bit for clients without becoming a full-blown social media agency.
Sure.
But I think the more important piece there is, like I said, just having that consistent, recognizable thread for your visual branding and your messaging so that it is aligned with what you're doing.
Sure. The next thing I'd wonder is, can you give us any ideas of where you see personal branding going? I've noticed these things shift a little bit over time, whether it's the technology shifts, but what are some of the things you're seeing in the broad sense of trends?
It's moving fast, Lynn. We see it on TikTok, on Instagram, and I feel like it's less attention to detail, which makes me squirm a little bit. It's much more just get something out and let's push the content and worry less about the perfection, which is a great exercise for me personally, but I find it really difficult. So maybe I need a coach like you to get me through something like that, get me through the mindset of just imperfection is better than no content. But that's what I see people are really good at now, just quickly editing a video and putting it out there and doing 2 or 3 a day versus 1 a week, which is what I would probably be slaving over. But certainly the influencers that are out there, just, you know what, they're so courageous with their personal brands, almost reckless sometimes, and not thinking ahead as to what the repercussions could be, the way that they're building their personal brands. I'm thinking of the younger generation specifically, right? The things that they say and they do can have longer term repercussions, but just the courage and the guts that they have to put themselves out there and take advantage of all the opportunities. I think that's exhilarating and a great model for us to be looking at too and watching.
Yeah, I've been told by some of my coaches that, Lynn, you have to be comfortable practicing in public. And again, short YouTubes or short things on Instagram, yeah, they're there forever, but not everybody will look at them forever. So it's kind of go ahead and put them out there and you'll get better and you'll have good ones and bad ones. And sometimes people will really enjoy them and that'll be great.
And it's nice for people to see the growth too, right? We might cringe and squirm a little bit. I do, thinking about my first podcast interviews that I did, and they're out there and it makes me uncomfortable. And yet it's also such a great example that, you can continue growing and improving, whether it's the way that you speak, how you show up on podcasts, how you interview on podcasts, your logo design, your website is always going to evolve. There's always going to be a progression. And so just starting is, of course, more important than waiting and pushing pause.
That's an interesting thing you bring up about the design. Do designs age? So as we're starting out, it's kind of like our computers. After 3-4 years, for sure, you got to think about a new one. Is that the same true in the design business?
I find that happens a lot in clients who maybe look on Pinterest, and it's usually in the early stages of business. They get very invested in micromanaging the branding process and specifically a logo design, if that's where they think they need to start. They're looking at the trends right now versus what is actually aligned with their style and perhaps what their clients are looking for too. So one way to not get into that trap is to start with that messaging piece, be it story brand or you are the brand, like what we help clients with, to really solidify your voice and your style and your offerings before you jump into something visual like a logo. Because if you just jump in with a logo and you're looking at the current trends and you're going, yeah, this is the style that I like, or even a website design, there are so many templates out there that look really similar because that's just the style people like. And probably 90% of the businesses using that template could do better if they had a more customized, more thoughtful solution. So on one hand, I know I'm contradicting myself. On one hand, I'm saying just put something out there. But then in my heart, I'm going, oh, it would be nice if it was done right for you. So it depends on where people are in the journey. If it's a first stab at it and you know it's going to evolve, getting something out there with a template or a Fiverr logo, go ahead and just know that you're going to invest again and again because things will become outdated or technology will evolve. But if you are, I would say 3 to 5 years in on your business, my clients are generally ready at that stage to put more dollars toward a proper, fully fleshed out solution. But they're also at the stage in business where they've got better things to do than micromanage how I do an A in my font on the logo, right? They trust that I'm the expert in that and that I'm going to make sure all of these pieces are aligned and I'm going to come up with something that just blows their mind. And it won't blow their mind if they're hovering over and telling me how to do it. It feels like, to me, it feels like monkey work, like you're telling a monkey how to graphic design, right? It's just, if they can sit back and trust the process and just stay in their lane, generally the outcome is better.
Yeah, I remember a designer both of us know. I was always interested that he went on a trip to Europe and took time to go to a font museum.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had them, but they do.
That's some weird things we do. I've never been to a font museum, but I am intrigued by that because we have this, maybe it's a sickness. We're driving down the road and my fiance is probably sick of it already, but I'll go, I know what that font is. Oh, look at that font. And I'm naming it off or naming the color. It could be obsessive, but I do the same. I go on trips and I go to different art museums just for that inspiration too.
Sure. But again, that's your area of expertise. And it's one of those things I couldn't, for the life of me, pick out a good or a bad one.
Right.
But, so, Nikki, how people could work with you? What are some things you've got coming up that you'd like to share with people? Certainly, we will have your contact links in the show notes and stuff, but what are exciting things you're looking forward to?
Sure. I have a podcast called Square Peg Entrepreneur, and I think many of your listeners would be interested in that. That's where I feature the stories of these personal brands who have the guts to really stand out in their industry. So they're talking about what they did differently and how it worked. I love the quirky weirdos. So you're going to get people from all walks of life and all styles on there. But then again, that's great inspiration and motivation for people to step out of their comfort zone. So that's Square Peg Entrepreneur as my podcast. And then agency wise, I love working with clients from all different industries. But the sweet spot really where we do our best work is for those clients that are 3 to 5 years in, where they're ready to just hand things off to a pro and get the full meal deal, a long-term relationship with designers who know them inside and out and know their style inside and out. And so they can get more information at fetchingfin.com. That's my agency. I understand that this is going to air in December, which is fantastic. I'm just about to set up a giveaway. I would really like to gift someone with content and strategy package that's going to get them started for 2023. So if you go to fetchingfin.com, you can find more information about that little giveaway that I'm doing just as a bonus now that we're past the Black Friday mayhem. Just something that feels good in my soul. And of course, just has entrepreneurs like your guests in mind to get them going in January.
Great. As I said, the links will all be available. And again, I appreciate, Nikki, you're sharing all your wisdom with them. It's very informative to me, and I know it will be to the people listening to the podcast. So thanks again.
Wonderful. You're always a joy to talk to. And I'm seeing your face on Zoom here, and that's a joy for me too. So nice to connect again. Thank you.
Yep. Well, again, many thanks to Nikki for a wonderful episode. Learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else did too. A quick recap, the idea of what breaks her heart when a person brings her a very weak set of branding or website. A little bit about her journey, a very interesting journey, especially this wonderful story of her grandmother. And then some talk around the idea of story brand and how the use of story can really help you as a solo entrepreneur sell yourself and show your distinctive value. Well, with an Encore Career, the rewards are great. You can be creating value in the world beyond just winning the next pickleball game. You can work when you want, where you want, and you can do the work you love. So if you're ready to get started today, please contact me at lynn@lynnfrias.com or head over to lynnfrias.com listen to a few podcasts, and get on the email list. So we'll see you soon, and all the resources for today's episode will be in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.